It is recording. Okay, hello everyone. My name is Dev Chaudhary, and this is my final presentation for business law. So I've invented a hypothetical business called Little Chef Baking Company, and I'm going to walk through how contract law, tort law, and business form decisions all apply to it, along with the risk management strategy I would put in place for each. So Business model. Little Chef Baking Company is a bakery and cafe with three parts to the business. First, it's a retail storefront selling baked goods and drinks to the walk-in customers. Second, it hosts paid staff supervised kids, baking parties on site for children who are aged like in between 5 to 12. And third, it sells take-home baking kits, both online and in-store, which include ingredients like baking tools and a small plastic character topper for kids. I picked these three revenue stream on purpose because each one creates a different kind of legal exposure, and that's the thread I'm going to follow through contract torts and business structure. Now I'm going to talk about the contract law. So the booking agreement. The contract I want to focus on is the birthday party booking agreement. This is the agreement a parent signs when they book a paid baking party for their child. It contains several express terms, meaning terms that are written explicitly into the contract. These include the date, time, and duration of the party, which is a 2 hour block, and the price and the non-refundable deposit of $250 due 7 days before the event. The maximum number of children covered with an extra fee per additional child. A requirement that a requirement that the parent disclose any allergies in writing, and a clear cancellation and rescheduling policy. I chose this contract because it's used for every single party we book. It generates revenue, and most importantly, uh, it touches allergies and money, which is exactly where contract law matters most. I'm sorry. Now I'm going to talk about the implied terms, condition, and warranties. Beyond what's written down, the law also reads implied terms into this contract, and these aren't stated explicitly, but they are assumed to exist. The first is an implied term of reasonable care and skill, meaning the business will supervise and teach the children competently. The second is business will, I'm sorry. The second is an implied term of fitness for purpose, meaning the ingredients and tools we provide are actually safe and appropriate for children's baking activity. And the third is an implied term of safety that the premises itself is reasonably safe for the number of children booked. Now, within this contract, I also want to distinguish between a condition and a warranty. A condition is basically a major term that one goes to the root of contract. Here's that's the term stating all the allegations will be disclosed. If that's breach and the child has allergic reaction because information was withheld, the parent could treat the whole contract as ended and sued for damages. A warranty, on the other hand, is a minor term. Here, that's the promise that printed recipe cards will be provided to each child. If you forget the recipe card, that's a breach, but it's like really minor. The parent can't cancel the contract or refuse to pay because of the issue of not providing the cards. Or they could only claim minor damages. Now I'm going to talk about the McDonald's toy example. This basically connect directly to the McDonald's and toy example that we had discussed in class earlier. The core legal principle there is that when a company includes a toy with a product aimed at children, like a toy in Happy Meal, the law basically implies that a term that the item has to be safe and fit for its likely user, which is a child in this case. That same principle applied directly to my business. The character topper included in the baking kit carry the carries that same implied and ideally also express obligation. It has to be age appropriate, non-toxic, and clearly labeled with any choking hazard warnings. If we skip that step, what looks like a small contract or warranty issue could actually turn into negligence claim or a product liability claim, which is a much bigger legal problem. Because of that risk, I built several risk management clauses into all of my contracts. There's a limitation of liability clause which caps damages for indirect or consequential loss. There's a waiver and assumption of risk clause where the parent acknowledges that baking activities involve inherent risks like heat and sharp tools. There's an indemnification clause, so the business is protected if a parent fails to disclose an allergy. There's a force majeure clause allowing us to reschedule without penalty for events outside our control. And also, there's an entire agreement clause confirming that the written booking form is the whole contract, so nobody can later claim a verbal promise was also a part of the deal. Now I'm going to talk about the tort law. I think I'm pronouncing it right. Now I want to move on to the tort law and apply the legal test for negligence to a specific risk in my business. Here's the scenario. A child touches the unmarked hot tray that was left unattended on the counter, and the child suffers a burn, right? To analyze this negligence, I apply the four-part test. First, duty of care. Little chefs owes a clear duty of care to the children at its bakery parties because it's entirely foreseeable that something we do or fail to do during supervision could cause harm. And the proximity here is direct since we are physically responsible for these kids. Second, breach of the standard of care. A reasonable baking party host would not leave a hot tray unattended near children. So leaving it out falls below that standard. Third, causation, using the but for test. But for unattended hot tray being left out, the children would not have been burned. Fourth, damage and remoteness. A burn is a foreseeable type of harm flowing directly from that breach. It's not remote or unusual outcome because all four elements are met. This would be a successful negligence claim against the business. Now I'm going to talk about the other tort and risk management. Negligence isn't the only tort business needs to think about. There's occupy liability, for example. If a customer slips on the flour spill on in the cafe, there's nuisance if the oven or exhaust fan creates ongoing noise or odor that affects neighboring units. This this treatment there's trespass premises after hours without permission. There's passing off if a competitor opens a business with a confusingly similar name or branding and misleads our customers. There's battery if a staff member physically restrains a misbehaving child without consent or legal justification. There's assault if a staff member uh I'm sorry, wait, what? Okay, there's assault if a staff member raises a utensil aggressively towards a child in a way that causes fear or imminent harmful um aggr imminent harmful contact without actually touching them. And there is false imprisonment if we look at a party room for safety without a clear and communicated way for a parent or child to leave. To manage all these risks I just talked about, I would put several strategies in place. Staff training on proper supervision and de-escalation techniques to reduce the risk of battery or assault claims. Sign liability waivers and assumption of risk acknowledgement from parents. Regular safety inspection and cleaning logs to defend our slip and fall negligence claim. Trademark registration of our business name and logo to deter and defend our against passing off. A double sign-off allergy intake procedure to reduce the negligence exposure, commercial general liability insurance, and product liability insurance significant what? Okay, no, my bad. Specifically for the baking kits and an ancient report system so that many injury is documented immediately. Now I'm going to talk about the business forms. Uh, Choosing a business form, let's move to the okay, hold on. Let me move to the next slide. Okay. There are three main types of to consider in the business form. A sole proprietorship has one owner, unlimited person liability, and is the simplest to set up. Partnership has two or more owners with a general partner sharing unlimited liability and is also governed by the partnership agreement. And third, a corporation, which is a separate legal entity from its owners, offering a limited liability through its more complex and costly to set up and maintain. It's more complex and costly to set up and maintain. I'm sorry. For Little Chef Baking Company, which is my company in this presentation, I chose to incorporate so the business operates as Little Chef Baking Company Incorporated. Um, I made this choice because the businesses carries real injury and product liability risk. Hot ovens, children's on the premises, allergies, and small parts in the toy included the baking kit including with the baking kits. Incorporating creates a separate legal entity, which means the owner's personal assets are shielded from from most business liabilities through what's called the corporate veil. The protection simply isn't available to a sole proprietorship or general partnership where the owner's personal assets are exposed. Now, I'm going to talk about the pros, cons, switching, and agency. Incorporating does come with trade-offs. On the plus side, there's limited liability for the owner. It's easier to raise capital by bringing in investors or selling shares, and the corporation has perpetual existence, meaning it survives. I'm sorry, I think I missed a point. It's easier to raise capital by bringing in investors and selling shares, and the corporation has perpetual existence, meaning it survives beyond the original founder. On the downside, it's more expensive and complex to set up with ongoing compliance requirements like annual fillings and corporate records, and there's the possibility of double taxation, which means the corporation is taxed on its profit, and then shareholders are taxed again on the dividends. So if the business ever needed to switch forms later on, let's say starting as a sole proprietorship and then incorporating, that process involved transferring assets and contract into the new corporate entity, formally registering the corporation, uh, potentially renegotiating or assigning existing contracts, since the corporation is now a separate legal party, and updating license and insurance to reflect the new structure. Finally, agency law play agency law plays a role in daily operations. Employees like sole manager or a party host act like agents of the corporation, which is the principal. That means when an authorized employee signs a supplier contract or confirms a booking, that contract binds the corporation itself, not the employee personally, but there's a risk here too. Under under the concept of apparent authority, if a staff member appears to customer to have authority, even if they technically don't, the business can still be bound by what that employee promised. So it's important that I clearly define in writing who has the authority to sign contract, issue refunds, or approve purchases, above a certain amount. To manage risk, to manage risk around the business structure itself, I will maintain proper corporate records and a minute book to preserve the corporate wheel. Avoid mixing personal and business funds, carrying directors and officers liability insurance, and periodically reassess whether the corporate structure still fits as the business grows. Now I'm going to talk about the last slide. I'm going to upload this presentation in my assignment. So to summarize whatever I just said in these 9 slides, on the contract side, express and implied terms, the distinction between condition and warranties, and a set of risk management clauses all work together to protect every party booking on the tort side, applying the fourth part negligence test and identifying other potential torts. Let me build a targeted risk management strategy. And on the business form side, incorporating matches the actual risk profile of this business and gives me a clear structure for agency relationship with my staff. Thank you so much, guys. My name was Dev, and I hope you liked it. Thank you.